everyone, this is Steffi from Little Steffi Big World. Welcome back to another flip through. This is about my 1 month trip to Malaysia back in October, November 2014. And it's pretty thick, and I also got a video as usual with just music. So I'm gonna flip through that book, this scrapbook, and it's just gonna be music. So if you don't want to listen to my voice, if you don't need any extra information about the trip and the scrapbooking part, head on over to that video. The link is gonna be in the video description below this video. And yeah, if you're into travel scrapbooking, please subscribe to my channel. My channel is all about flip throughs, process videos, but also scrapbooking hauls, scrapbooking supply hauls, mainly on travel scrapbooking things. So yeah, let's head into this. It's a big 12 by 12 album. So this is 30.5 centimeters by 30.5 centimeters, and this is the first proper 12 by 12 album that I finished. It's actually the second album that I finished. The first one is my trip to Bali, which I've been just before I went to Malaysia. I've spent 7 days there. I went for a few days to Australia, where I've already traveled for 10 months. So I traveled to Australia for 10 months, went for a week to Bali, back to Australia for just a couple of days, and then went on to Singapore actually. I spent a week there. I also got that video on my channel. And then from Singapore I went to Malaysia. So let's have a look. So I didn't do anything on this, and this square here, it shows part of the map of Malaysia that I printed off the internet, and it shows my route. I started in Singapore and went to Malakka, then from there to Kuala Lumpur. I went to the Cameron Highlands, and then I did like an island hopping. I went to a very small one, Pangkor Island, then to Penang Island by bus, and then by ferry to Langkawi. And then from Langkawi I went all the way back to Kuala Lumpur, and from there I flew to the east coast of Australia. So the whole tour was about 3.5 weeks, so nearly a month. And I went by bus from Singapore to Malakka, and after I've checked into my hostel, I just went around the city. So I just put in a few pictures. This is, I think, from a memorial which was closed for the day, unfortunately, for some festivals. Then I went to the Porta de Santiago, and then I remember that I totally got lost. I had a map with me that I got from the accommodation that I stayed in, but I didn't know exactly where it was until I reached the Dutch graveyard. And then I found the Dutch graveyard on the map, and then I knew where it was again. So that was quite a walk in the middle of the heat in Malaysia in October. I'm so frustrated I didn't keep that travel memorabilia. I didn't keep any of the tickets or maps or brochures or anything of that time, so you won't see a lot of travel memorabilia in this scrapbook. Because I was traveling already for nearly 11 months at the time, I didn't want to have too much luggage with me. I wanted to travel light, so I didn't keep all those papers, all those maps and brochures and tickets and anything else that you can collect. Well, when I found my place again on the map, finding the Dutch graveyard, I went up the hill to the St. Paul's Church, and I didn't know that it was just ruins. I actually thought it would be a proper church, but anyways, you have a fantastic view from up there over the city, so it was well worth it. So when I went down again to Malacca, there is something called the Red Square, also called the Dutch Square. There's a church, there's a Dutch house, a stadhuis, and there's also a windmill. And with all the vegetation, they tried to implement a European flair, but it was so hot and so humid, you never forgot that you were actually in Southeast Asia and not in the Netherlands or something. So after all the walking, I decided to go to the Jonker Street, which is very, very famous. It's in the Guinness World Records book for something. And I had looked on the internet for a restaurant to have the nasi lemak, which is one of the traditional dishes there. It was really, really good. Really enjoyed the meal and enjoyed walking up and down that street. So I have another picture here of one of the temples from the outside. Very, very colorful. And but I didn't dare to go in. I was on my own, I was traveling alone, but as you will see along that 1 month that I traveled, I always met some people I could do something with. And also on that day I met some guy just talked to me and about how he thinks I'm brave traveling on my own. And Malaysia is fairly safe for female solo travelers. And the funny thing is, in the evening, so this is during the day, this is Little Amsterdam, and then I went again at night. I met that guy again. I actually met him in front of his house, so he invited me to sit there with him, and he just talked about the city because he's been living there for quite a while, and he just told me about how that city changed over the years with all the tourism and what the Dutch influence was. It was just nice to sit there with this local guy and have a talk. Yeah. The next day I took the bus to get to the capital of Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur. And the funny thing is, I went to the hostel and I had booked 3 nights, but the girl at reception said that's too long for Kuala Lumpur, okay? You're just going to pay for 2 nights, and if you want to stay 1 more night, that's no problem because they are in off-season and they have lots of room. But she really recommends to me not staying longer than that because Kuala Lumpur is not that exciting or anything. I was like, okay, I'll pay for 2 nights then, and then I'll see if I want to stay any longer or not. So after checking in, I had some lunch. I was close to a market. There was a really big choice and it was fairly cheap as well. And then I just walked around the city. I was still on a budget, even though, I mean, Malaysia is very cheap in comparison to Australia. I still didn't think like paying too much for transportation, and so I was just walking around. There's some pictures from the Merdeka Square. There were some really nice buildings, and then I went to Chinatown as well. And then there's a free bus. It's called the Free Go KL bus, so KL for Kuala Lumpur. And it took me to the famous Petronas Twin Towers. So I took a selfie during the day, and then I went into the Petronas Twin Towers because at the bottom there's a shopping center. So I had some snacks for dinner, and then I just waited for nightfall so I could take a picture when the towers are lit up, because it looks really nice. So yeah, that was my first day in Kuala Lumpur. And the next day I wanted to see the lake garden, and again I tried to navigate with the map that I got from the hostel, and I totally got lost. I just walked around for 2 hours until I found the station of the LRT, so like a metro system, and then I took the metro system, the LRT, to get back to my hostel. So I had some lunch, I did some internet research, and then I took the LRT to get to the Batu Caves. So this is a very famous big statue, and then you're going up the stairs here to the caves at the top. But I had shorts, I was wearing shorts, and also, okay, my shoulders are covered, but my knees were not covered, so I couldn't go up to the caves. And I actually have, for my trip to Bali, I have my sarongs and stuff, but they were in the hostel, and I didn't want to pay the money to go back to my hostel and come back to the caves just to walk up there. So I just took a selfie, went back into the city center, went to the Golden Triangle in Bukit Bintang. There's some shopping centers, and really I didn't feel like staying any longer in Kuala Lumpur. So I said to the girl at the reception, I don't want to stay any longer, that's it, I'm going to head off. So the next day I took a bus to Tanta Rota in the middle of the Cameron Highlands. So I was in the middle of the jungle, and it was off season, it was rainy season actually, and it really poured down the day I arrived. So the next day in the morning at the reception of the lodge that I was staying in, they said, okay, it's a really nice morning, you should do this walk. And there are some signs, so I'm saying signs in question marks, kind of, because this piece here, this piece of ribbon saying this is the route number 10, this is the sign, so this is the way you should go up to the top. It took me 1.5 hours to go up, which is pretty good. I think they said it would take me probably 2 hours to get there, but luckily I had did some research on the internet on what signs to look out for and what's been crossed out and everything. So after 1.5 hours I was at the very top and I had a fantastic view, but you could see the clouds coming in and forming, you know, for the next shower. I still took some selfies, and then on the other side I went down. It was a little bit slippery and it still took me 1.5 hours to get back to the lodge, and literally that 10 minutes after I been back to the lodge, the sky opened and it just poured down, like you couldn't see anything. And in the lodge they were like, yeah, that's our rainy season, that's normally what it's like the whole day. Yeah, but the season was a little bit strange. So the next day I had actually booked a day tour with the lodge that I was staying in, because they were saying, well, the weather forecast for the next day, it's gonna be the same like this day. So in the morning it's gonna be really, really good, and then in the afternoon it's gonna rain. This was the car we were driving in. There was the driver, Bob, me and 2 other Germans actually. We were staying in the lodge as well in a different room. I was in a common room, but I think the common room was for 4 or 6 beds, but there was only 1 other girl with me in there, and these 2 girls had their own private room. So we went to some tea plantations, and the guide told us everything about how it's growing and how you harvest it and how you drink your tea, and we had a stop as well for tea and cake, which was really nice, really, really nice. And then yeah, just went to another viewing point where you could take loads of pictures of the lush landscape. It was really, really nice, and I really had a good talk with the 2 German girls as well. So we went to the mossy forest, and we went up the top, but it was completely foggy. So we were at 2,000 meter height, 6,561 feet. We couldn't see anything. It was completely foggy. Yeah, it was really a shame being up there. But then we went to the real mossy forest, like off the beaten path. Like there was no one else. We went into the forest and he showed us some real jungle. It was amazing. It was really, really mystical with the fog as well. It was really nice. There was some insect farm visiting included in that day trip. I didn't enjoy it too much, especially the insects not so much. So I still put a picture in, but I was more interested in like this little squirrel here. There was also another house with butterflies. So these are actually pictures that I took of butterflies in that house. I just fussy cut around them and just made, you know, a little pretty page. And then we also went to a strawberry farm, because apparently due to the climate that they have in the Cameron Highlands in Malaysia, they can grow strawberries all year long, and they are big in exporting strawberries. So we had some strawberry stuff to eat as well. So yeah, it was quite a nice day trip. In the evening I had something to eat with the 2 German girls, and there were some other female travelers in that lodge as well, who joined us for a movie. And then the next day I took a bus and then a ferry to get to Pangkor Island. Yeah, so after checking in I just had to walk around, and it was a beach very, very close. And then the next 2 days it was just relaxing, like literally sleeping in, having breakfast at some point, going to the beach, having a nearby lunch with a beach view. And yeah, it was off season, there was nothing much going on, not too many tourists. I think these were probably one of the few days that I really, really spent completely on my own. There wasn't anybody who could actually take the picture of me, so I'm not in these pictures. So I just took pictures of my tower and of the beach, and there are some swings. It was really nice. 2 days of doing absolutely nothing and just relaxing and sleeping in, having good cheap food with a beach view, having the sunrises and sunsets. Fantastic. So I went on the bus to another island, which is Penang Island, and I went to Georgetown, and Georgetown apparently is famous for its food. I went to tourist information, and the guy there said, you know, Georgetown is famous for its food, and I'm like, no, I have no idea. So he gave me a food map of Georgetown, like where to find all the different kinds of food. And I took that as a guidance to try to eat as many different foods that I could. So laksa Penang was one of them, and this is ice kazang, which is famous, very colorful dessert. I did take pictures of some buildings, like this is I think a mosque, and this is a shopping center. I fussy cut that out and put it here, but it was mainly about the food actually. So when I was back in the hostel in Georgetown, I met two of the girls that I met just a day before in the Cameron Highlands. So we got to talk, and they have found some other travelers to go out to some bars. So we went to a reggae bar because this guy and his friends are they have some travel website or something, and they were on researching bars and stuff, and they had to go to that reggae bar. So we just went with them, and we had a really good time. And they told me that they had a day tour booked for the next day, and they asked me to join them. And I was like, do you have still another place? I think it was 6 of us or 7. They were like, yeah, there's enough room in that van. So I went on a tour with them. So the first one was to the Penang Hills, and we got the ride up there, and we took some funny pictures. This is actually from up there, from in front of one of the temples. The view over the city wasn't the best. We didn't like it too much up there. We made the best of it. But then we went to a really nice temple, the Cameron temple. It was very interesting. It's apparently one of the biggest Buddha temples in Southeast Asia, but we couldn't enter all of the areas from the temple because we were tourists. We did some prayers, we did lit some candles, and made donations to put up some of these prayers. So it was a really nice, very nice temple with loads and loads of Buddhas. And even though we couldn't enter all the parts of the temple, there was loads to see, loads of pictures to be taken. And then there's the Kuan Yin, which is part of the temple, and you have to go up a little train. I think it's another temple, I'm not sure. We had a much better view over the city there. There was a nice pond with kois and these little statues with the bears. The guys or the girls took a picture of me with these little bear statues. We had a fun time. It was a very fun group. So the driver dropped us off at a marketplace where there was a variety of food stalls, and I got out my food map and decided to eat something that I didn't have before, and everyone was really interested in it. Oh, I didn't know about this, why has no one told me? And they looked at the map and they were like, I didn't know there was so much to explore food-wise in Georgetown. I'm so frustrated I didn't keep that map. So yeah, this is the group. So it was 6 in total, so they were already 5 with the driver, and then they squeezed me into the van, and we had some really fun time there. So they were really funny. I loved it. I loved that day trip. We went to a little jungle and looking at boats, but we had to pay extra for the boat. We thought it was too expensive, and we didn't have time for that. So we rather went back to Georgetown and had dinner together. We had dim sum as starters, and then we went to a little market, and I had wonton mee, and this is one of my absolute favorite dishes. I think I had it 1 or 2 times more during the course of me staying in Malaysia. I really enjoyed this. So the next day, I think most of the other guys moved on to somewhere else. I had to check out as well. I wanted to leave Georgetown to go to another part of the island later on, so I just put my luggage in the luggage storage room and just walked around the city. And then I met 2 guys, Sekoy, who's actually from that island or from Malaysia, and Philip, who's also German. And I don't know how it happened, I just spoke to them and we got to talk. And Philip was there on an exchange for work, And then after work, Sequoia said, okay, I'm going to show you around that part of the city. And I was just tagging along. So it was mainly about the art of the city. So they took some pictures of me with these cats. They please care and bath me, or this motorcycle and other things. So it's very, very famous around Georgetown. This is actually the very first one, so it's a real bicycle. And then someone painted very realistically these two little girls. And then this started everything else. There's loads and loads of these kind of arts there. And this is my favorite one with the swing. So it's a real swing, and these two kids there who look actually pretty realistic are painted or drawn. So yeah, that was really nice. I think we walked around for 1 or 2 hours, and then we had Indian lunch together, and then they had to move on. I went into the fjord, and then I got my bags. And then I went to Batu Ferringhi, which is another part of the island, and I just spent 1 or 2 days enjoying the beach. And then I went back to Georgetown into the same hostel. I met a Chinese guy called Tong in the common room, and we were just talking, and his English was pretty good, so we were just talking about anything really, about traveling especially. Then we decided to go to lunch, and while we had lunch together, we were talking about, yeah, we should rent a motorcycle and drive around the island. We were like, okay, let's do that. I've only known him for 2 hours, and we were renting a motorcycle and driving along the island for the rest of the day, and it was pretty scary. It was a very, very scary drive. He drove all the way because I can't drive a motorcycle. I mean, it's not a real proper motorcycle, it's a roller, I know, but I couldn't do it. So he was driving all the way, and I just showed him the directions and reminded him to stay on the left side of the road. And because in Malaysia they drive on the left side and not on the right side. So there were some really, really scary moments during that drive. We went also to this national park, saw a little snake there, we saw a sunset at the beach, and then in the pouring rain we drove back to the rental space. And I just was so glad we were still alive. Okay, so we had some Indian food in Little India, in Georgetown, and I'm still in contact, very, very loose contact with Tong. He's from China. I actually met him again in China, so that was really, really funny. So these are just some more pictures of the food I had while in Georgetown. I didn't even put the names down, but I remember this being really, really delicious, and this was great, a great choice of stuff. I enjoyed it. It was really a food paradise. So from Penang Island, I took the ferry over to Langkawi Island, and the food there wasn't anywhere near as good as the food in Penang Island. It really wasn't. So I went on another day trip. They picked me up after breakfast, and we went on the boat, and we went to several beaches. We went to Pulau Peras Pasar, and then we went to Peras Pasar Island, and it was really, really nice. The beach was so nice, the water was really clear, there were some wild monkeys, but it was fairly clean. It was all very, very nice. It looks like paradise. Look at this, the blue water, the white sand, the palms. It was really amazing, but we just had a few short stops there. And then we went to eagle feeding, so all the boats who had the tourists taken to there, they threw some meat into the water, and then the eagles would come, you know, and catch the meat and fly off again. This is just a picture of some fishes, and yeah. Then the next and last stop for that trip was the Dayan Bunting Marble Geoforest Park, which is famous for the Lake of the Pregnant Maid. So here you see the head, the breast, the pregnant belly of a sleeping woman. It's said that if you swim in that lake, you will get pregnant. I didn't swim in there because at the time I was away from my husband for nearly 11 months, and I didn't want to get pregnant there, staying away from my boyfriend at the time, who was now my husband, so I didn't go in there. So after the tour, there's this eagle square. I just took a picture of this giant eagle statue, really famous in Langkawi. And very close by is a park called the Legends of Langkawi. So if you walk through, there are statues and things telling legends and stories about Langkawi. But unfortunately, the signs, they were in Malaysian, in a Malaysian language and also in English, but the English language, I don't know why, was faded away or not properly put into the plate, so I couldn't read what the story was behind the legend. On Langkawi Island, I moved to the other side, to close to Cenang Beach, and I stayed for 3 days. And I had a really relaxing days there as well. 3 days. I stayed in a hostel again. I met some really awesome, totally stress-free people who took me around to the several beaches, and we were just having a good time. We went partying, and during the day I was just relaxing at the beach with another girl. I think it was a British girl. It was really nice. I'm unfortunately not in contact with her anymore. It was just fantastic. But I had my flights booked to go from Kuala Lumpur to Sydney, so I went back to Kuala Lumpur, but I didn't do a lot in the city. I just went out to buy maybe some souvenirs or to get something to eat, but otherwise I actually stayed in the hostel until I was flying back to Australia, to Sydney on the 19th of November 2014. So this is going to be my next project. My Australia scrapbook is actually the reason why I went into scrapbooking at all. But before I went on to scrapbooking those 900 pictures, I decided to do some smaller things. That's why I decided to do the Bali scrapbook first. This was actually the second one. The third one was Singapore, and then I did, if you followed me at all, loads of other scrapbooks. But the next thing I'm going to tackle is my Australia scrapbook, but I'm going to show you a few other projects that I have been done in the last months. So I hope you enjoyed this. Please give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on any other flip throughs and process videos and scrapbooking supply hauls. Yeah, you all stay safe and scrapbook on. Take care and bye bye.